Okay, as promised, here are my 5 essential exercises that I did when I had my acute back pain from a disc bulge that got me out of muscle spasm and muscle pain. Now, we did stretches the other week. These are the core exercises and glute exercises, the low-level ones, the boring ones that I did every day to help me reduce the muscle spasm and reduce the back pain. Because as much as we were doing stretching before and trying to change disc pressures, because of the pain, you still get lots of glute tightness, lots of back tightness. That tends to go into quite a lot of contraction, and that causes pain, and you've got to release that as well. Now, stretching it out doesn't do the job well enough. You need to do the stretches, but you also need to do the strengthening work. And that's the strengthening, that low-level, boring stuff that makes a massive difference to your function and actually loosens you up. So if you're in this sort of boat where you've had a disc bulge and you seem to be tightening up all the time, locking up all the time, and you're really struggling with stiffness and pain, don't just do stretches. Work on the core stuff. I know, like I said, it's boring, but it's totally worth it. Now, let's go through all 5 in order. Okay, just as a heads up, if you become a member of this channel, you can get exclusive access to the exact exercises that we give our clients here in the clinic with the exact cueing, instruction, technique correction, so you can get your rehab done right. We're uploading over 700 of our new videos, so head to the members area and check it out today. First one is knee floats. Now, when you do this one, or what I did at home was after I did all my stretches, then I'd do my core work. Now, the floats one is all about challenging your activation, your ability to activate your pelvic floor and your transverse abdominis, okay? Because when you switch on that transverse abdominis and pelvic floor, you get a reciprocal switch on of your deep little muscles in your back that stabilize your spine, and then you get a relaxation of the big ones that are trying to do all the job, and they're the ones that are tightening up all the time. So, when you do this, or when I did it, I made sure I was in a neutral spine first. You do the same thing like we do with all TA. Hold your pelvic floor on, try and tighten through here by zipping your core up in the air, and that means not sucking it in or pushing it out. It means bringing in your transversus that way, which is like if you had a scar from here to here and you're trying to shorten it and hold a wee at the same time. That's how you turn it on here. Now that's all well and good to switch it on, but you've got to challenge it to get the strengthening part of it, or that low-level strengthening part of it, which makes the difference in the day. So from here, I would go and try and float. If you watch this leg here, float one leg off, okay, and down without changing anything through here, all right? So you go from one leg up and down, and then the transition to the second leg up and down. Now you might think, oh, it's such a small, boring exercise, and it is, but the effectiveness of this is when you do 1, then 2, and then you do 10 of those, you're holding the contraction of your pelvic floor and your abdominals for those 10 on each side, those 20 reps. That's what makes the difference, okay, and challenging that. And you're also trying to think about, you know, I'm separating my pelvic from my lumbar. So I'm moving the hips and stabilizing the spine. So when you walk, you don't have sort of movement of your spine jiggling around. You're being more stable here, which means your big extensor muscles don't have to stabilize as much. They can just do the walking motion, all right? That was a really important one to do, and one I seriously recommend you get really good at, and making sure that when you, say, raise your leg, you don't push out and do that. Now, the level above that, of course, is going for 2 legs, okay, and then down and back. That puts more demand on here. Now, some people, like I couldn't do that in the first couple of weeks because putting 2 legs up there put some pressure on my lower back, all right, and I didn't have enough strength in here to handle that. So it wasn't good for me. So don't rush ahead and going, oh, I've got to do heaps of strengthening work here, heaps of core like a dead bug. Do 1 leg at a time because you're after low level activation. Remember, this is pain relief, muscle spasm relief, not full-on core strengthening, okay? Make sure you know the difference between those two. Now, second thing I'd follow that with is a bird dog. So really nice one to do straight after your floats because you've just switched on all this, okay? So this is all active. The bird dog will get more of your lower back muscle relaxation, okay? The first one is to try and get this to trigger the relaxation here. That's the key. The second one in a bird dog is to actually make those muscles do a proper stability job, okay? So muscles on either side of the spine, the ones that are tightening up and going to spasm, protecting that spine, start relaxing and doing a good job. So from here, I do the same thing with my abdominals. Hold away, zip the scar here so I know this is on, all right? And then I'm going to move one arm first. I'm not going to do that. I want to go one arm first and hold it as high as I can here, the straight arm, make a fist, and then the back leg goes straight out behind me. Now what I want to visualize is thinking there's a glass of water here. I imagine there's a glass of water there on my back, and I'm trying to balance it, all right? So if I moved my arm, if I balance the water and if I move my leg, I'm going to spill it. Okay, so I've got to keep this level and straight. The way I do that is hold here well enough, and then that's a 10-second hold. Okay, make sure I'm pushed away from the floor at that point as well. Then I do the other side. That would be 1 rep each side. You're aiming for 10 of those. Now it's quite hard to do 10 in a row, so I usually split up into sort of say 3 sets of 3 or 4, because otherwise it's quite hard on that arm that you're loading up. All right, so you can do that in a fashion of rounds. You know, we go through these 5 exercises. You might do 1 set of each exercise and then do 3 rounds of that, so you're covering all the exercises. So after the knee floats and bird dog, you'll probably find that things are moving a little better already. So while you're in the lying down position, before you do the glute work, you've got another core one to do. Now this is very similar to your floats like this, but it's called a fallout. This one here is really good for controlling rotation left and right. It also, like the lift for the float here, it challenges me here and keeps me active of my transverses and pelvic floor for a long period of time. It's the endurance isometric effect that's going to give you that pain relief in your back. Plus you're lying down, you're unloaded. So while you're lying down, you might as well do some core work. Now, what you do with this is the same sort of setup. Hold a pelvic floor, switch that on. You're going to let one leg go to the side and one leg stay still. So if I'm going to keep my right leg still, my left one's going to the left. Now as it goes left, what I want to do is, again, like the float, I want to stabilize here so I can isolate just hip movement. Right? I don't want the left leg then rocking and tilting the pelvis like that, because that's not core stability. So keep this still, let one leg go out. It'll only be able to go so far until you feel it's going to fall out anyway, and then you bring it back. You've got to try and not let this all switch off and breathe up here while I'm going from, say, the right leg, and I suggest you do alternate with this, and come back to the left leg out and come back. And what I like to visualize is, imagine if your pelvis is a boat, and then this is a person sailing it, and it leans out to the side. It's not allowed to tip the boat over. They lean out the side, but they can't tip the boat. So you're going to try and control the boat here as they lean out the side, and then you bring it back again. And again, this is another very effective way of keeping all this turned on, which makes all the spasm here reduced down. Okay, and that is what's going to give you your pain reduction. Now, pain also goes into your glutes, all right? So we want to make sure we're working on those. You'll be quite surprised in doing things like, again, boring. All these things are boring. Things like clams, okay, like this, are really boring, but amazing for pain relief through the buttock, because the pain's going down from my lower back into my glutes. It makes the glutes tighter, makes them sore, and that adds to your pain monitor, right? So what you want to aim for here, when I do a clam, is if I look where my heels are, they're in line with my hips, okay, directly in line with my hips. First thing I'm going to do is core, okay, so exactly what you practice on the knee float. That's why I want you to do the knee float first, because that sets you up for all the other exercises. You know exactly what you're doing, plus every time you do the next exercise, you keep activating through here, and hey presto, this stuff helps your back, all right? But you're doing the core work here to stop your pelvis moving this way so I can target my glutes. A lot of people, when they do this movement, they rock back at the pelvis, see that? And they're not doing external rotation of the hip, all right? They're just rolling back and forth. So this here holds me and holds my pelvis still so I can isolate what's happening at the hip. Now you're going to do external rotation, which is that movement, all right, knee up. I want you to focus less on the knee up and more about pushing your heels together. So imagine like I'm sandwiching my heels together. So my top heel is going down, my bottom heel is going up, and I'm pushing them together really hard. And then what I try and do here is squeeze my glutes together. All right? So think about if I had a credit card between my butt cheeks, right? I'm going to crush that card and squeeze my buttocks. Now this is a mind, sort of neuromuscular movement here. There's no load apart from my leg. But if you push hard enough at your heels and you squeeze hard enough at your buttocks, you will get enough contraction there that'll lead to a good pain that'll then switch off the bad pain and give you that contraction that you need and reduce, almost give you an analgesic, reduce the pain through an almost analgesic effect of exercise. Okay, so when I'm doing this, you probably can't see it because you can't feel it, but I'm pushing hard through my heels, squeezing my buttocks. So by the time I get to 10, I should be really feeling that through here in a good way. That will give me then less pain when I walk and move. Okay, it's quite effective, especially for someone like me who's getting pain deep down in the buttock on one side now. It's really effective. The second glute one you do is a bridge. Now this is also glute max, okay, but it also teaches you to hinge properly, which is really helpful for daily stuff like bending down and picking up things when you've got a disc bulge, moving around, sitting to standing, that sort of thing. So really good as a pain reliever, but also as a helper to help you start moving throughout the day. With your glute bridge, this is definitely not an articulated bridge through here, meaning you're not rotating or flexing at the spine. You don't want to flex because when you're really acute, and you probably can't. So when you go into bridge, you don't want to think about rolling first, all right? What you do want to think about is pushing through your heels and not lifting at your back. Yes, your pelvis comes up, but what we're trying to do is sort of tell the brain, I want to use my glutes and the hammies to do it, okay? Because that's where the pain is. I want them switching on, not switching off. I don't want my back doing it because that's already overloaded and already tight. The more I can get my brain talking to my glutes and my hammies, and less my back, the more back relaxation I have, the less pain and muscle spasm I have. So to get up, I'm going to push my heels down. I'll think about if I could push my heels through the floor. So I load my heels down and immediately I'm going to come up at the hips. All right? I want to think not about arching my back, not about lifting my back. I want to go heels down, weight down through here. And when you get about halfway, you try and squeeze your glutes to finish it off. So by then, I've got glute, hammy, and heel. I'm not thinking about my lower back. Yes, my lower back's off the floor. I've got my core on here, but I'm doing all the work from beneath, okay? And then when I drop down, I weight down through the heels and slowly hit the ground there again, okay? I would reset after every rep, switch this back on here so you're stable, so you stop moving in your lumbar spine, and then power through your heels and come up. Now, if you notice, that's a deadlift position, right? So we're already practicing a hip hinge in this position, okay? And it's much better for you in the first 2 weeks to do a bridge than do a deadlift position because there's no load with this on the spine, all right? The deadlift, there is load. So we want to reduce that and make sure that we're fighting muscle spasm and muscle pain because we can't go and full on strengthen it yet. Not yet anyway, all right? So that's a really effective one. Again, boring as, but amazing for reducing the pain, reducing the spasm, okay? So that's my 5. Next video we're going to work on is single-sided stuff for disc protrusions, which is what I've got. So we're going to go through some nitty-gritty stuff of how we're going to try and really reduce pain that's going down one side of your back and into your buttock. I'll see you next time. Now, if you are struggling with your rehab and you need specialized, structured physio exercise rehabilitation programs for your injury and surgery, then do yourself a favor and head to physiorehab.com or click on the website link in the description below. If you like the content on this channel, then hit the subscribe button because the bigger the channel gets, the more free videos I can put up for you to watch.